Live on Radio Mano, Muchinga Province, live on Chete FM. But we're also live on our Facebook page, that's Hot FM Zambia. Go ahead and follow the discussion there. Also, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. Let's begin our conversation. How has 2026 been for you so far?
Well, maybe before I go there, let me just say hello to the people of Northwestern Province. GVAP mweva nandi mweva chipata ndeti tili bwanji avena Muchinga na Northern tulishani kumie suku Western Province luchwani and I just thought I could say hello to the people out there. I didn't know that we were connected to the other stations. The year has been good so far, Tisha. We've been busy. Mm-hmm. You remember that in January, on the 28th, we had our Congress as Tonse, where I was elected as president and presidential candidate for the Tonse Alliance. So we have been on a drive to recruit other members. Abena chalo baletila ba opposition ikataneni. Ngamalolesha Tonse, Tonse at the moment equate civil society organizations. So with these 23 organizations, we want to recruit more. So I'm out there together with other leaders, trying to talk to other opposition bodies.
Okay. Now, I know you've been on the road, meeting Tonse Alliance leaders in several parts of the country. Let's talk about your latest trip, which was to the Western Province. What has been the common thread from the people who have been meeting you on the road on these trips?
Chisha Bulanda. Nga edo tuwale Western Province, for instance. Tuwali mina kopa Stumbeko. Tuwali mina kopa Mumbwa. Tuwalanda kuna bantu pana Lusanga, pata Tayoyo, pati BZ, panke Ema, tuwafika Mukaoma, paluwa Mpatanof, pana Lwei, ukuyafika fena Mumongo, message imo inefya. Abantu nabakwata sana Bulanda, abantu nabakwata Bulanda no mwenso. There's a lot of anxiety.
Where is this anxiety coming from, do you think?
Well, first of all, people are suffering. That's what you have to understand. An average Zambian is suffering. There's no question about that. And if anybody came here to say, Avena Zambia Tavale Chula, you should be worried about that particular individual. He becomes a danger to this community. So, abantu mkuchula kwabo, baishiwo kuti, muri democracy twasalile, ama isalile. Ngabale chula ngafite, bafilo kuba free ukulanda. So there are two things. Abantu bale chula, ero tabakwete freedom ya kulanda to express themselves. Ngabati balande, many of them are rotting in police cells, as it were. So when you engage them, and as a national leader, they can trust you. They open up to say, "Tua papata, Mundubile, tua papata." Ifwe chavulanda, August 13th. Is what we're looking forward to. So now, these are different parts. There's a distance of about 600 kilometers between Lusaka and Mongo, and we took our time to interact with the people along the way. And the message was very consistent.
So you're saying people are complaining, but the government is saying things have improved. They'll point to key economic indicators, talking about inflation dropping, prices of commodities are dropping, but then when you're going out on the road, you're saying people are complaining. So how is it that we have two pictures here? You have one picture saying people are suffering, but the government is saying everything is okay.
Governance, should be about the people. It should just be about the people. If the focus of government is to play around impact on the ground and people celebrate that, then it's unfortunate. I would rather have inflation, a double-digit inflation, and the prices are low. I know this sounds odd. I mean, inflation is nothing but the rate at which prices increase, so to speak. Okay? Yeah, but it's also possible to play around with the inflation rate. You get my point. At the end of the day. Yeah, so what we expect is that when the inflation what is needed is one, for government to create meaningful and sustainable jobs. Pakutila abena Zambia, that's the benefit. The cost of living should come down. As it is now, well, maybe I live in a different Zambia. I've just given you an example. I'm just coming back from Western Province. These are the complaints coming from the Zambian people. So the reasoning from government that the fact that the figures in terms of inflation is now a single digit, then everybody should host a party in the villages. The lived realities on the ground. If you have to ground vya kutila, imitengo ya fintu ichili pamuru, imisepela tashikwetesha nchito. Na bobe nevale ya fuilisha. I'll give you an example. Maybe I will. You've been to Dola, you've been to the Copperbelt.
Yeah.
Besides small-scale mining, what you have on the Copperbelt, you had youth surviving from the timber business. They were doing business with Zafico. Things have changed because Zafico has locked them out. Zafico is now doing everything from the beginning, from cutting down a tree to a finished product, and they've removed the sawmillers out of that trade. Now, this was a very big industry. It was a very big industry, and I remember that in the previous government, we had embarked on a program to replant trees. You will find a number of forests there as Zafico. The idea there was trying to preserve the hardwoods, to preserve the indigenous woods that would take 50 to 100 years to grow to the full size. It was easier to regenerate pine and these exotic species. So we were encouraging youths to go into timber using pine, timber business or so many using pine. So government is
I'd like to know, about what message are you carrying for them as Tonse?
And we are also looking at Nakulumutinta Pamakasa. These are two key policies. So you have Nakulumutinta Pamakasa. It's a constant times. So in formulating policy, you have to have people in mind. The challenge you have today, Vachisha, is that our friends in government today, they formulate policies with a foreign businessman, a foreign mining company in mind. A challenge to Lekwata. So the Zambians are always left on outside because they are not central to the policy formulation. So this, I want you to know, is a key. If we Tonse policy yonse tukalapanga tukalabika na kulumutinta pamakasate center no musepela, such that whichever decisions we make should favor these two, because these two are Zambians who are vulnerable. So let's take, for instance, I've just given you an example of what has happened to Zafico. So before the Zafiko board and the Zafiko management makes that decision, they should have so Zafiko would sell trees to these sawmillers. And the sawmillers had their businesses running, they were cutting it into planks, selling offcuts and planks and so on. So it was a major industry on the Copper Belt. Yeah, because government had invested in these particular forests. Zafiko, on the other hand, would also cut some of those trees and process them into finished products. So there was no competition per se. Upper market. Then these traders, of course, were selling from Museko, from Masala market, and so on. It was a very, very big industry. We took a survey and established exactly what was going on. So because government, the government does not have Nakulumu Pamakasa, or indeed the youth, as being central to the decision making. They can make decisions anyhow, even if they negatively impact their own. That is the difference that we're going to make. So we'll consider the most vulnerable, the weakest in society, in formulating our policies.
Are you therefore saying the UPND have neglected the needy in society?
I can't say it any better. And you know why? Because they never had a Zambian in mind as they formulated policies. I'll give you an example, Chisha. In the first year, where in quotations. So at that particular stage, whose interest did they have? Clearly, they had the interests of foreign mining houses in mind. Okay? There was no Zambian considered there. An average Zambian, Nakulumutinta Pamakasa, the youth was not in the purview. The youth was not considered. The weak and vulnerable in society, by taking that particular measure, was not at all considered. If the UPND was a government that put the Zambian first, they would not have come to transfer shares in Mopani mine. The Zambian people, you and I, owned Mopani 100%, as at the time APF was losing power. So when they came in and transferred it. That was paid by that particular company. Why? Because we're dealing with a government that does not have a Zambian in the center.
But don't
Very
you give
quickly,
them...
they were exporting power at the expense of a Zambian person, average person. The power was exported to all these neighboring countries. And this information was coming from the same neighboring countries. So if they had the Zambian, that Baba, would have kwa kalingalinga, would have kept to run their businesses. Today they can send out quarter power through and through. But has there been an assessment to establish how many companies, how many SMEs have gone under as a result of a 2-year period of load shedding? Have they established how many of these youths, how many of these small businesses have actually lost their houses in which they pledged as collateral in getting these loans? So the point that you should come to is only one, that for me, as Brian Muntairo Mundubile, aspiring to lead Zambia, there's a Zambian who comes first. And in this particular case, not just a Zambian, we're going to look at the most vulnerable. We identified Nakulumutinta Pamakasa as being the most vulnerable, including
a major reason for that. That was the most devastating drought this country has ever experienced. But and also there's the debt restructuring that's happened. You talked about the mines. You can say they've revived the mines. We've almost getting to 1 million metric tons of production. So there are these positives, but you're painting a different picture of the current state of the country.
You see, when you're dealing with a government or leaders that don't tell the truth, we said, okay, let's see what will happen next. We are still where we were that time. It's the same government that will go out there when we talked about climate change. What were President HH's words? These are excuses. You can't. But when we experience some partial drought, and underscore that, partial drought, a partial drought cannot be the most devastating. We have had a drought covering the whole country before. What we had, the one that President a partial drought will not be the most devastating. The falsehoods that most our leaders come with that make it very difficult, to believe in what they say. There are so many inconsistencies. Today, you will see a minister of energy come to Parliament, to seek Parliament's approval to introduce emergency tariffs, and later you realize that they were just creating a margin for their companies that are trading in energy. What was supposed to be an emergency tariff is now a permanent tariff.
When you say their companies, what exactly do you mean by that?
The leaders in the UPND have formed companies that are trading in energy. This is something that is a common knowledge out there. So we've always said that because we are dealing with businessmen, these are businessmen who are there for profit. You understand? They don't care how many small medium enterprises go down. What they care about is to protect their profit. Okay, so they were able to introduce middlemen, companies that they own through proxies. So the only policies that they introduced are policies that protected their profit margins. Okay, now if this government was full of leaders that cared about the poor, about the most vulnerable, they would have dealt with the poor situation better. They couldn't.
But with the tariffs, yes, there were emergency tariffs that were put in place.
Yes.
ERB had approved those, and ZESCO implemented them. But now we've got new tariffs that were implemented late last year, and these are cost-reflective tariffs, which then allow for investment to flow in, right?
Yeah.
Because that makes the investor more attracted to Zambia to invest in the energy sector.
What's the meaning of cost-reflective? What's the meaning? That's the question. And the habit of throwing words around to confuse the citizen. Ngolevo muntu at cost reflective. What are you talking about? Yeah. So what we expected, first of all, there's a study that was commissioned sometime back, 2015. This is over 10 years ago. A cost of service study yali yakutila abantu beshibe panto walerando kuti fomena Zambia twalibikira ndalama muri Kariba Dam, twalibikira ndalama mu power generation projects. Line. Tuke shibe, how much does it cost to produce a unit of electricity? Momone imwe to produce that one unit in 1 kwacha. Malabi kasha ni pali 15 kwacha. So in the absence of the cost of service study, the results from the cost of service study, it becomes difficult for anybody to talk about the cost reflective tariffs. Because where are we starting from? What are the cost-effective tariffs? So you know very well, Chisha, for instance, Ngawayako Zesco, Walaya Sanga is top heavy, okay? Zesco is top heavy in terms of staffing because Chilakada, Uskwetefia Kuchita, Wale Posa Mabwe, Wale Tobe Miotoka, Wale Oche Miotoka, they're employed at Zesco.
They said they cleaned up Zesco.
They did not clean up Zesco. What can we establish the cost of producing one unit first before even to be able to know, we have three stages. You have the generation, okay? You have the transmission, and you need the distribution. So we are saying at generation, there must be money made. Let the team that is doing generation prove that with generation alone they can break even and post a profit, and then pass on the power to the company that is doing transmission. So the suggestion there was that if we can't establish the cost of producing this power, can we break down the supply of electricity into three business units? Number one is generation. Number two is transmission. Number three, distribution. So each of these stages, the output from the generation, which includes the profit margin, is the cost of that power to the transmitting entity. And also, they put their margins for wheeling this power to, wherever, up to the distribution point. Because we've been talking about being attractive to an investor without really, okay, this is where we're starting from. So this is what is called a cost-reflective tax. These middlemen spring up from, okay? Where are all these middlemen springing up from? These are businesses that are run by colleagues, leaders in the UPND themselves, okay? Charging a premium on tariffs so that they can bank profits. We are dealing with colleagues who are focused on profits. Don't lose sight of that. They don't have the plight of a Zambian person in mind.
If you just tuned in, this is the Hot Seat here on Hot 87.7. My name is Chisha Mwambe. I'm your host. My guest is Tonse Alliance presidential candidate, Mr. Brian Mundubile. You should know that we're live on Facebook, the Hot FM Zambia Western Province, whom you met at his palace in Limulunga. How important are such?
Very, very, very important. Chisha, I'll tell you that I come from a family not only of a parent who was a politician. My father was a freedom fighter and a politician, but in his old age, every morning in Mporokoso, he sat as one of the chief's advisors. So he always told me, to ensure that I respected traditional leaders. Those are our parents who are able to guide us, bless us in our dealings. So it was a great honor, to be hosted by the king of the Barotse, obviously for his blessings, indeed guidance, and just to generally, learn more about the expectations of the people of Barotse.
What did he tell you about that when it comes to expectations of the people in Barotse land?
Well, of course, without going so much into detail, they have a proper system. When you go to Limulunga, they have a very clear system. There is a team of indunas that you meet first. Okay, the team of indunas, interrogate you. They also give information regarding. So by the time because you spend a lot of time, these are about 14 donors that are meeting with you to discuss various issues concerning the province, various concerns, and so on. And then it's a very healthy interaction, as it were.
Now, when you talk of the Western Province, it's one of the poorest regions of Zambia. My interactions personally with a lot of people from Western Province, of lack of proper infrastructure, and a lot of it is dilapidated. They just feel that not a lot of attention is given to them. Are these some of the conversations that you are having with people out there in the Western Province?
Yes, indeed. And the point really is there was a lot of talk before. Our friends in government today, President Hakainde Hichilema and his colleagues, believed that we were discriminating against certain provinces, as it were. And, it's very sad, because I believe as sons of the soil, ichibemba chitila akachila kambushi kasengwile pokekele, we would taken 3 hours. Okay, so in the absence of a clear plan focused on a Zambian in Nalwei, in Indondo, in Namushekend, in Kaoma, in Kalumwange, in Lukulu, in the absence of a plan that includes that one Zambian in Nalikonge, it becomes very difficult to formulate policies. What am I talking about? Found a Zambian who lives in Kalumwange along Kaoma Kasempa Road. They would have accelerated the development of the Kaoma Kasempa Road and the Luampa Sesheke Road. These are economic roads. First of all, as they are giving out, they would have been expecting and anticipating high production. So planning evacuation of that particular produce, and that road will provide that a quick evacuation. But along the way, because as they're thinking about their wealthy friends that run these mines, they would have had the Zambian in mind too, meaning that all these areas, Kasempa, Kalumwange, Kaoma, coming all the way into Luampa, of these roads and this traffic has been introduced. So the point really to make is that there are several low-hanging fruits that this government would have taken advantage of in Western Province that have not been done. That is just one of them. If you look at livestock, 85% of the population in Mongo depend on livestock. So what government intervention should have been is to make sure that they improve the infrastructure around the livestock sector. One, improved extension services, veterinary services as it is, so that the people in those villages are trained on how to keep animals, healthy animals as it were. Very simple, Chisha. Botswana is a partial desert, but they have survived. The economy has survived, not only on diamonds. If you go and look at the livestock sector, this is something that we are going to implement in Tonse. An area like Western Province, we want to make sure that government provides the primary market. Okay? A cow is as good as cash in the wallet. That's exactly what our friends have done in other jurisdictions. One, they make sure that those animals are properly cared for. You know, the villagers are able to keep the health certificates for every animal. They're periodically checked and so on. Because of the incentive of the market that exists, facilitated by government, in some cases the private sector. When you have an animal in Botswana, an hour later is converted into cash at a very good price. So that has encouraged people to keep animals. So when you look at Western Province, the people have skills already. They have these animals already. They depend on livestock already. The question is, where is government in all this? Why hasn't government moved in to promote the numbers or the population of this livestock, so that it's an economic activity that would help the people of Western Province even before other employment is created? So in sum, you look at an area and you can't see a government anywhere. You don't see government anywhere. You don't see it in the area of infrastructure. You don't see it in the area of agriculture. There was a cashew nut project that was started in the previous regime. If you go now, it's abandoned. Nobody cares about it. We did industrial yards and in the previous government. These are industrial yards where youths are supposed to be promoted. Government intervenes, acquires equipment, trains the youths, and they begin to make a livelihood out of it. Be it carpentry, be it steel fabrication, proper factories where government can actually move in with the Bureau of Standards and be able to buy some.
You're just saying this to try and earn their vote when a lot of people have gone there, given them promises, and maybe they'll listen to you and think this is no different from what we've heard. So why should people
doing zafiko nga when you implement your policies ngeishimise pela sharamso meeting ku Copper Belt shaita survive shan. Okay, we talked about several things. We talked about the youth in agriculture. Okay, we had talked about the youth in mining. Okay, we had talked about social and social protection, in which case Nakulu Mutinta came in. Nakulu Mutinta, in this particular case, we influence the construction of feeder roads. Nakulu Mutinta, in this particular case, we influence the distribution of fertilizers. Nakulu Mutinta, in this case, will influence the provision of healthcare. Nakulu Mutinta, in this case, will also influence the provision of applied with fertilizers where she can go and get. So the policies that we're coming up with are easy to understand, very straightforward. Because why? We have a Zambian in mind.
While you were in Mongu, there was an incident involving your delegation and its convoy. According to the Zambia Police Service, some people have been charged with traffic offences arising from that incident. What really transpired? Give us the real story behind this incident.
It's actually very funny. Chisha, when we saw that story elevated to levels there, then I knew as a country we have a problem. There's been cases here where a youth is tortured. A couple is torturing a youth to death, and that youth actually dies. Was overshadowed by some incident of a traffic offense. And you begin to wonder, what are our priorities? There was nothing serious, so that's a traffic offense.
What happened?
Well, we were at the palace in the Kuta. We saw some police officers walking around, the palace and so on. So obviously people got concerned. What are these people doing? The Ngambela assured us that no, they've been informed that these people are actually the same policemen who were checking had now mounted a roadblock. Okay. Now we're in an environment, Chisha, today where you can't even trust the so-called police because mostly these are cadres. Okay. There was nothing unusual. I think we had a few vehicles in front. We had a convoy of 6. So the person who was in front indicated and decided to, to take the right lane and go. Nothing unusual, As a member of parliament, we sometimes excuse ourselves that way for security reasons. You've driven on these roads. An MP is coming, not said that they are disobeying traffic rules. They would give their hazards and give a signal to. You really don't want to expose yourself sometimes in that way. These are things that we do every other day, not necessarily out of disobedience, as it were. So there was nothing unusual. That's how we all passed and went to our next meeting. An hour later, the same group that came to the palace, mounted the roadblock, again mounted another roadblock. And we were stopped there. I think 2-3 of the vehicles were cleared. The 4th vehicle was still there. Because it was a traffic offense, we left them there. They'll get a charge sheet and they'll go and pay. So as we traveled out, 100 kilometers away, we had been cleared by a roadblock outside the toll gate. 100 kilometers away. We are now told, no. These vehicles are needed back in Mongo. If there were any issues, they were the same people. If they had any issues with the first, what had happened at the first roadblock, they should have brought them out then.
What do you suspect happened in the background?
I don't know. I don't know. You're dealing with cadres in uniforms. Okay, these are cadres in uniforms. They catch feelings. They say, "What is it doing at the Kuta? What is it doing at the palace? What?" And they just want to disturb you. It's very, very. It's a source of concern. And remember, we're saying people are anxious. Okay, we're in a country where we're in a dictatorship, so to speak.
When you say cadres in uniform, don't you think that will upset police officers when you say something?
No. The behavior of those officers in uniform is not that of trained officers. A traffic officer comes to check the vehicle, and then she says, "Please bring down the window. They want to see who's sitting in the cars." We can't. These are cadres in uniforms, and it's very annoying. If
the police are professional, maybe
it's not
offensive to them, isn't it?
Well, I'm just describing them for what they are. These are cadres in uniform. The behavior of these officers on Monday, these were simply cadres in uniform. First of all, they come to pretend they're checking for 1 or 2 things within the palace. The same group now goes to mount a roadblock. An hour later, the same group follows, knowing that we're exiting out of Lusaka. So, does it make sense to you, Chisha? You are cleared. You are cleared at Hero Stadium. There's a roadblock. And you traveled and just entering Kabwe. And they say, no, please go back to Lusaka. There's an issue. There's a traffic offense. Yeah. So, if I tell you that it's not the first time we're encountering these roadblocks, every Zambian knows that these cadres in uniforms, and you speak to them, they are so annoyed, they think they are fighting. You ask them, "Officer, what is the matter?" If there's a traffic offense here, the law provides for the penalties. Do we pay? Do we get a charge sheet? Let's relax. We're all Zambians. They're all tensed up. This is an officer who's behaving, you know them that they're cadres because they're so upset with you because you come from a different political formation. And officers are supposed to be neutral. "Hello, sir, how are you? Okay, insurance is expired. This is what yeah. They are so tensed up. They are so annoyed. They're doing politics and, oh my goodness, this is the end of this country. We have to redeem this country. We are determined as Tonse to redeem this country.
Name is, and then put your message there. Also, you can leave a comment on the Hot FM Zambia Facebook page, and we'll be able to put it to our guest, Mr. Brian Mundubile. Now, I want to talk to you about the head of state traveling as well. He was in Ndola and Kitwe over the weekend, where he addressed a public rally at Arthur Davis Stadium from all key public universities. And then the issue of allowances popped up. What do you make of this approach by State House to use the students' body in partisan politics and the general handling of this matter by government?
Muchibe mbatutila ifya kulyo ushiku fifumina kumalushi. What you saw there, ifya kulyo ushiku fifumina kumalushi. President Hakainde Hichilema was a darling to the youths. Kupunda felt bali chijobu muliwe. Youth is very different. With them. We work with them, we walk with them, and resolve problems with them. And to Imisepela, Chisha. Imisepela shall be very innovative. Imisepela shall changela. Imisepela shall quite energy na maka. So Imisepela nga washipusha na ma solutions, ama answers ya shiko. Kuma problems ya shall quite. If you Imisepela tashikwete capital, tashikwete equipment, tashikwete fina facilitation. So ngamwaeka ne Imisepela no kutila, okay, the big ya isa. BM8 nize bige. Mwe Sepela. Wafia nshimukwete mi music industry. Bala londololanga wapuisha muti, okay, nga chali ni wewe kwete answer. How can we resolve this problem? Walondolola, we mkalambali lole isamo kupanga fya ma adjustment na ma alignments. By now, President Hakainde Hichilema, if he took that approach, the big brother approach that I, as BM is taking, I, as a big is taking. Imisepela, he didn't need to pay Imisepela to attend the meeting. Imisepela ngesha alehechita haya mabases ishine because they would have had money.
Well, we've been told that the students are the ones that invited him. He just didn't invite himself.
Well, we didn't.
So when you say he paid them to attend, that's not entirely true, isn't it? The students are the ones who invited him.
When you're invited, you don't pay. You know, when I invite you, you don't pay me. Okay, you don't pay me because I invited you. Okay, you only pay me because that the students won't come if you just
invited him, so he knew okay, he would show up, right?
Well, okay, let's say they invited him. Let's take the best case scenario. Let's say a group of youths invited him. Why did he feel it was imperative for him to pay them to attend the meeting? That's what he must ask. I can just go. But now bakuita, now then you introduce an incentive. So that is not necessary.
Did that show that President Hichilema still has in August?
A non-stronghold for Tonse, just with a bag of money. You know that there are some provinces that are not our strongholds. They haven't been our strongholds. Just give me a bag of money. You see how popular I'll be in that area that day for a couple of hours. Yeah, so let's be careful. You know, with this rented popularity.
So you don't think, so that was a facade to you? That was not real?
It was a facade. I mean, why are you paying? Why are you paying youths who once loved you? Why are you paying them? These are youths who once loved you.
But you're saying once loved, they showed up for him.
That's what I'm saying. Do you know that Bali never used to pay any money and he had youths in their thousands? So don't you think 5 years later, the youths should have actually been preparing gifts for him because they've benefited from his policies in the mining sector? Imisepela nomba ngeshirete nkoko, shirete obunga bakateka twatotela, kwate nko bamukolo 6, bakateka twatotela, isaka lya tuteli. Suji light no man for to lay imba bakateka imisepela Kalisa generate 1 megawatt. Mkwai bakateka na tuletako such and such an assistance. Mkwai mwalitwa kwa sana. in the agricultural sector. Upper number we are producing X and Y number of tons. Mkwaika wakwateko 100 bags here. Imisepela nomba ngeshilebwesha kuli bali.
The president brought back meal allowances. And the students are very happy about that. That could be a reason why they showed up in their numbers to endorse him.
Those are loans.
During the Patriotic Front,
those are loans.
when your party was in government, you scrapped off meal allowances, and when President Hakainde Hichilema came into office, he brought that back, and that appeased the students. And one could say they're showing their appreciation by showing up to a rally.
But he is still paying them. Let's not lose sight of that. But what I'm simply saying is that if the students were properly motivated, and the youths alike. Remember, these students are not going to be students forever, Chisha. They will soon graduate. The one who was in first year had friends in second, third, and fourth year. So all these students graduated. Those are the youths that are on the street jobless. So the one who attended that meeting is in their fourth or fifth year. They can actually see their seniors that are jobless. So they actually know that they are going in, they will start struggling. What has President Hakainde Hichilema done? New allowances, okay, it's a given. 3 years later, they've graduated. Then what? What about those in Tonse? In Tonse, Chisha. We imisepela tulolesha poteba sambila beka yo. Tatulolesha pama university students and graduates. Tulolesha no musepela ushatala hapo kuskulu. Tulolesha pa musepela wa ilepo kuskulu halfway apona. Tulolesha pa musepela yonse misepela put together. Because musepela. Kwa bane misepela visha kwa tafya manu ya chishalilwa. Tawa hapo kuskulu, but I understand things. So tatulolesha pa musepela na ngumo yo. Ba Hakainde Hichilema, yes, he focused via kumisepela fafine, bashipela kwendalama and so on. But there are many other youths out there. Neshine bale pele ndalama. These are people he previously didn't pay to attend a meeting. He is now paying them. These are students that once loved him. He's now having to pay them to attend the meeting.
What about the meeting with the students at State House last year? There were students from Yunza that marched from their campus all the way to State House, and the president opened the gates and let those students into State House. What about that? Were those students paid off as well?
Oh, those were well paid, actually. Of course, the information always emerges. Those were come to just different light. You are intellectuals. You are the next ministers. You are the next MPs. So he should not disrespect you that way. He should not think you are worth 100 kwacha per day each time that he sees you. He must be able to look at that can go in a lab. This country is facing. He look at studies and his School of Humanities. He is looking at students doing development studies, doing economics and many other courses, who can sit in an incubator and be able to come up with solutions for this economy. That's how the bigger looks at the youths. When I see a youth, I don't reduce them to being worth 100 kwacha for 2 hours that I want to speak to them. I'm looking at the potential solution givers to the problems that we're facing in this country.
So how will you how do you approach students or just institutions of higher learning as the Tonse Alliance then, if you're criticizing the UPND's approach?
Like I said earlier, it's engagement, constructive engagement. You must trust that these students have, first of all, have got the intellect, they've been properly trained, they're studying the trends in our economy, in our environment. When you toss a question, sometimes it could be like an assignment and say, okay, this week we are talking about debt restructuring. Okay, can we, you, the students of economics, can we do some research around it and discuss on how we proceed? You'll find that most of those students would actually come up with better solutions that than we're getting from a comrade Msokotwane. Yeah, because you see, if Comrade Msokotwane solutions have been the best. We've spent the entire 5 years debt restructuring. President Hakainde Hichilema is now crying to say it has taken too long. All they have done the past 5 years is debt restructuring. They were not fighting for debt forgiveness. The debt is still there. So the only thing they've been doing is restructuring debt the whole 5 years. All right? What has been the benefit? Nothing. At least nothing that we can see so far.
This is the Hot Seat here on Hot 87.7. My name is Chisha Mwambe. I am your host. And my guest is Tonse. Part of this conversation, leave a message on 097. We're live on KNC Radio in the Central Province. Copper Belt, you're getting us live on Radio Ichengelo. Radio Yangeni is listening to us live from Luapula Province, so is KFM. The Northern Province, we're live on Radio Mano and Chete FM in Muchinga Province. Good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us today. We'll be getting in some of your comments and put them forward to our guest here. But let's go back to that conversation about electricity. You talked about electricity tariffs that have made it very expensive for some households to afford. It's very difficult to afford for some households. Do you have any suggestions on how government can make power affordable? I mean, you even mentioned that you served as chair of ERB at some point. What is the government not doing right in this instance?
Yeah, it goes back. Fyapen twachilanda po chisha. Nina kulumuti ntapa makasana msepela. Number 2, Zambian first. So, ngatwachita establish the cost of service. We establish the cost of service. Okay? We must, as government through ERB and ZESCO should be able to provide tariffs. I know that I've just forgotten what that is called. There's a band where it's more or less subsidized, okay, up to a certain volume of units that you consume. So government is able to intervene and be able to draw or charge interest of a Zambian. You look at a world and there are no jobs. Chisha, you must understand, mufilo kwishiwa kutila, ubu take off wabela ko kwa fwa abekala chalo. Efo mufilo kwishiwa. Nomba ngamwakwata ubu take off kutila, intungulu shi lechita chase after profit. Intungulu shita yonse shifo kupanga profit. Then you have a problem. Mufilo kwishiwa okuti government yabantu bonse ubuteko bw'abantu bonse government niyaziko lonse government niyabantu bonse government iliko kutandiza antu potandiza abantu ija government ifili kuona kuti apa tikayangana maweldas wasenza bwanji tikacharginga matarifu charginga lelo maweldas wazapanga ndalama masaluni wazapanga ndalama baba shop, lodges, and all these are small businesses. A point pajanyakuti, government is there to resolve challenges for and on behalf of its citizens. Government should not quickly come out and say, no, but this is cost reflective, there's nothing that we can do. So the cost of electricity, first of all, was procured through the seat, these tariffs, because they came as emergency tariffs. Nokutilanga fyapitefi tukesa chinja. And we've continued like that. And we also discovered a trader, ama company yawo, awa ninsom UPND. Abe nebeka, awa lecture trade money electricity. Ema margins ya labachita po feed. Wabi kapo pakutila, wale pangeni dalama. Nomba filata fwa ikwa yo. Ubu teko ufilo kumuno kuti. Uwikash wabantu wababwino. Bela chita focus pali profit yo. Ngabafu miyamu fe profit component. Ngabafu miyamu business. nabuka itemwe intungulushi mu UPND, Amalite can cost a lot cheaper.
Now let's get back to the politics of things. We saw Ichawaiche joining the Tonse alliance. What is the significance of that? And do you have any advice to parties that are undecided about joining the Tonse alliance, especially those you left behind in the Patriotic Front?
Ichibemba chitile imiti kula empanga. For a country to progress, it must safeguard the plight of its youths. Those are our future leaders. They are the now leaders. So, imisepelanga mwashilekelesha ni chichalo chao naika. Mumone natukwata backlog. Imisepela sha Pushama University 5, 6, 7 years ago. They are still on the street. Shakula no kula shasango kafena shafmana buli bu youth. So, if we ngefo tulandile, nina kulumuti ntapankasa no musepela. What are we trying to do? Tulefwaya ukusa safeguard chalo chesu. So ishimi sepela. Tulefwa tuwombe na shonoti fe muma shiwi filabale walaya yo. Ifo emisepela shile ingila mu leadership no mbaline. Ngefyo nalandile enachilanda chisha. Shile emisepela kwete na ma answer kuma problems ya shiko. So ichaba iche movement for good governance. Nentungulu shiabo binu mpundu. MP Munandi. They've done a lot of work in emisepela. Batila mukwai imitikula empanga. Epo abena Zambia baleti ikata neni. Ifo ngechawaiche tuwasa tuikata nepamo. Tuambe ukula bombela pamu kutungulu lechalo. Now, it's very important, Chisha. Pantu imisepela. Muyuthu inya Tonse na muchawaiche. Naba kwa ten tungulushe. Take for instance, so imwaiche wandi chabota. Talk about these are leaders in their own right. And together with Tonse, they occupy leadership positions. We expect that even when we form government this year in August, the youths will not wait for the elderly to resolve their problems because they've been leadership positions themselves. I made a policy pronouncement to make sure we deal with the backlog of the many challenges that the youth face. Will have an accelerated implementation of youth programs. So the Ministry of Youth and Sport will be placed under State House. Whilst others have placed DEC, SEC to quickly persecute their political opponents, that's not our priority. Our priority is the youth. So we'll place the Ministry of Youth and Sport under State House so that there's an accelerated implementation of all policies concerning the youth.
Some people have criticized Honorable Binwa Mpundu for joining hands with you, saying Ichava Iche is now going, joining hands with Ichava Kuru, Ichava Kote, as some people have said. What do you make of these assertions that are being thrown around?
No. As a matter of fact, Comrade Binwa Mpundu, Chabota, Wensi Winji na Bonse, they are very wise. They understand that Nabakalamba walikuwa taro. Abakalamba even abakalamba pali ifwe bali kwata role wachita play. They've got so much experience. There was a saying that was once given to me by my elderly in my small business. I'd employed and somebody was 20 years older than me. So one day he was telling me, he says, you know something, young man, what an old man seated under a tree on a stool, what that old man sees, a young man up the same tree can't see. The old man seated under a tree on a stool can see much further than a young man who is. It's a combination. Abakala mbabali is na knowledge, na wisdom, okay, na experience. Aba ichina bakwata energy, na bakwata innovation, na bakwata my idea. Ayasuma. So this combination of Abakala and Banabaiche is actually a bomb. Yeah. Pantova Ichana Bakwata innovation. Nabakwata energy. They've got the drive. Abakala and Banabakwata wisdom, Nabakwata experience. Bonse, Tatulisanda Recha Baiche yo. Awa is to line dashan. Now Wale Tumdala, Apatu station. So you find that there is a lot of consultation between us. And I think together will be able to resolve the many challenges that have remained unresolved for many years.
We've received a message here from Isaiah. He sent a message through on WhatsApp, and you can do the same thing on 0974-870-877. You can even call in, and we'll be able to have a direct conversation with you, but you have to call on WhatsApp. The message here is, good morning, Mr. President. I would like to find out how far you have gone in the discussion between you and Makebi. This is referring to Mr. Makebi Zulu. Now, I know you've offered an olive branch of sorts to the faction and Mr. Makebi. Is that still on the table for you?
Yeah, Isaiah, thank you very much. You may wish to know, Isaiah, that Makebi Zulu is not only a fellow lawyer, and we once both served as provincial ministers and members of parliament. He's a personal friend of mine. Mwaichawandi munandi chine and yeah. So we've been talking. The comfort you should draw, Isaiah, is that I'm sure sooner than later we'll come back to the media and so you can draw some comfort from that.
All right, we have someone on the line now. Let's speak to them. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Doing good, thank you. How are you? Hello?
President.
Hey.
Good morning.
Yes. Good morning to you.
Good morning. What's your name?
My name is Luca.
Luca, please go ahead.
Yes, Mr. President. Good morning.
Good morning, Luca. Mashuken.
We know mkwai.
Maukabu ino.
Me, Mr. President. Navuka febwana wakateka. Ine question yandi ngwete wakateka ni pali Bill 7.
Mkwe.
Bushe Bill 7 since mwali condemn. Cha mukaifunyapo mwa wakateka na nguyo. Then number 2 question ni pali road ndola do carriageway because twajumfa kutira badi sana kutira 25 years bada abantu bakalapenda tempia nomba mwenga mwaisa bushe mukachita poshani mukatwadida na ile contract basana up to 25 bakalesenda fe mpia pa target padi nangu yo na totera mkwai
Luca totera mkwai. All right. Please go ahead and respond to Luca.
Na totera wa Luca. Ichikankale cha kushiwa wa Luca kutila ichalo cha Zambia nifila tuito kuti constitutional democracy ukukonke funde ida Bill 7 nga mwakonka vakonkoti vatile iyi inshila umutande mwakonka uwa kuchita amend constitution uli illegal ififya ufuntungu muleke ba government bakonka nyapo babepeka kwa bantu o natupanga technical committee natuchitefi but babwelele kulira ine Bill 7 so ida Bill 7 mu constitutional law tuti amendment so ngatwa ingila mu buteko we will have to review the constitution except that tukai holistically review the constitution so that we even deal with some of those amendments that came by way of Bill 7. So, ngavafine mwachitanda baluka, tete tuleke chibe filia iyo, nishinomba tuasholu bola mumubidi. Uwa kweba tinama bute, okay? Udia macro ocean afuma kui. Ni ronshi akwatamo pantabale fumye ndalama niba anapusa ni ndalama shesu ba contractor ba Avic epo baba ba China Railway epo baba ba contractor basuma sana China Railway na Avic abo bene bapangire na ku chingola solwezi nishi ba anapusa tabale pelele ndalama ba National Road Fund Agency elo balipila ba contractor so ilia contract ibale ibe ndalama through targets that will be reviewed. It will be reviewed so that the Zambian people can get a benefit from their money. Ichile elfu ikwapa, ichile landwa, te revenge ngaba nensufila bachita iyo, kupanga obololoke ukololo efintu fyabangefo filiokuba pantu nga twafisha filafine nakuntanshi tukesa kwata obwafya abantu bakambukula kitefya ufuntungu ukumuna kuti abantu nabashishita nangu nabalala.
We have a message here from Frank, who says, good morning, Mr. Mundubile. Since we need a united opposition, can you serve under someone else like Harry Kalaba? The united opposition can only be led by you.
The position that we have, tualile kuma elections. Tualile kuma elections as Tonse. Remember Chisha. Who sent the message?
That was Frank.
Frank. Save under that. What I'm looking at is that we should not look at an environment where it will just be HH and one more person. My honest and sincere view, Frank, is that if Waza goes for elections, but somebody emerges as a winner, and maybe Nuevo. Now to go back to them, at this stage I want to be very sincere. We are ready to go August 13th. We are ready for the election. I'm the candidate for Tonse, and I'm standing for and on behalf of 23 organizations.
Johnson says, I like the way you're explaining the issues. Me and my family will vote for you. That's Johnson, who sends in a message. We have someone calling in now. Let's speak to them. Good morning. Welcome to the hot seat. Good morning. You're through to the hot seat on Hot FM.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. What's your name?
Hello, good morning.
What's your name? Good morning.
Mwamba.
Mwamba. Hello? I think this is... I think Mwamba will try back. Bit of some trouble with that line there. Give us a call, 0974-870-87. To the hot seat, and you can have a conversation. That line dropped there. But quickly, I wanted to actually put this to you. In most of your recent trips, you've been traveling mostly with FDD President Chifumo Banda, State Council. How's this bond developing between the two of you before we pick up our next call?
No, very well, very well. You should know, Chisha, that I've been working about Chifumo Banda for a very long time. If you remember, even during the National Dialogue Forum, when we were doing consultations over the constitution amendments, twalibombele closely sana na Chifumo Banda with my sister, the late Edith Nawakwi, alongside many other political parties. Ngamwaibukisha sana, I was the one in charge of negotiations. I was the one who was in charge of negotiations with opposition political parties. So Chifumo Banda was one of those elders that I would consult Pafia Constitution Amendment together with the State Council Sakwiba Skota at the time. So relationship yesu kale yamba tele yo. We've worked together for a very long time. You also know that is my senior at the bar. He will actually be celebrating 50 years at the bar this year, State Council Chifumo Banda. So niwalo ya banandi but wakala mbabesu efikolwe fiesu mu legal fraternity. So the bond is developing very well.
Okay. Well, let's get in more of your calls. Keep them coming in, 0974-870-877. There's a message coming from Geshom who says, Mr. President, I think the only way you can win these coming elections is by working together with Makebi Zulu. And the reason is simple, you're the only ones that are influential. What are your thoughts on that? I know you talked about putting that olive branch out there. Is Mr. Makebi Zulu one that you are looking forward to working with closely?
Yes, of course. I mean, we like I said earlier, and I'll ask a question yakwa Frank. We've been chatting. Tumfa kubantu. If enchite sungen tungulushi kumfa kubantu. In tungulushi te mano kanjikwatile yo. Okay? In tungulushi neine, efo tuwefo kwa different from waka inde ichilema. Waka inde ichilema niwa mano kanjikwatile. Fionse walishi wabena. Waka likuli fionse. After 5 years, Fionse Fesa Feluka, and Zambians wake up to realize that Kanshi, a man no yaba mukutwi. So, ine, nantungulu so shamu Tonse. If we want to let a man no yaba mukutu, tumfa kubantu. Abantu nga batila banefo tule mona panifi. If you finefe to conquer. So, you must be very comforted, Chisha Kutila. Fionse Fidelanda abantu, tula sambira chilabushiko. It's not the first time abantu wale tuwebo kutibane. Imbuya owe maichi owe Makebi Zulu ampane nikatane ni pamo pakutumwombele pamo. That's the reason why we've been meeting.
Another question that's come in is saying, what's your take on no data being shared?
You know, these are a bit more transparent than they currently are.
That's from Elijah, man.
By Elijah, na tusakamana na ifwe yali basekiwa nama funda. So ngacha kuti ubuteko bwapita kumbali muleto befunde lutwapangire fwebe ni okutila personal information, personal data must be protected. Icho ni chabulanda lelo tatupapile yo pantute first time pa UPND baleto befunde nga mwalolesha pali duo carriage baito belefunde pali mind pali personal data under Ministry of Health. So efo ningalanda baka inde chiteni protect data ya bantu. Bakateka, you swore to protect the constitution. You swore to protect the citizens. So, bakuta protect ama citizens. Mumo ni okutila na information ya bantu, data ya bantu mwachita protect. Bonfie nema negotiations yambi lelo mutile ili against the law. Ifunde liakana pali ichena chafina tutawakwanisho kutitefiyo. So, techintu chisumecha kuti emo bwachela mwebuteko umobwine mutewafya amafunde. Your personal data yali very, very important to all of us as individuals.
We have another message. This is from Blessings. He says he wants to ask about infrastructure in Zambia. So he says, my question on the infrastructure of Zambia that would have been started by other political parties. For example, the Patriotic Front started nuclear power projects, the National Prayer House, and many others have been stopped by the current government. Now, how can the country develop like that? Are these party projects or national ones? How different will you do things with regards to this type of issue? So it's projects started by one government, and when there's a change of administration, then some of these projects are abandoned.
What's the name of the gentleman?
This is Blessings.
Yes.
This message in.
Blessings, thank you very much. Yeah. So Blessings, you are right. As a matter of fact, the growth of our economies, infrastructure development is stunted for that very reason. The next government abandoned the projects that were started. Now, when you go to Mongo, project, it's now been abandoned because the initiative that came from the previous government. This money came from the people of Zambia. It came from the taxpayer. It did not come from the PF members. So government should have been quick to complete that particular project. You go to the cashew nut project. There was a lot of money that was put into the cashew nut project. It was believed this was going to be the mainstay for the people of Western Province in the agricultural sector. That project has been abandoned. So there are many other infrastructure projects that have been abandoned. If you go to Northern Province, where I served as minister, you find Mporokoso Kawamba Road abandoned, Mporokoso Nsama Kaputa abandoned, Mbala Kasaba Bay abandoned, Nseluka Kayambi abandoned, Mpika Kasama abandoned. So how do you develop like that? You know, government is a going concern. Government does not stop merely because a different government has come in. It's supposed to be a continuous project started. For instance, sector, when we look for the idea there was food secure. Ngati tulekwata ma incidents za kutatu ubuteko na bushamata ku Congo ubuteko na bupela bakada FRA na ipela bakada ba UPND amataba that if this farming sub-Saharan Africa, but we had what was called the Northern Circuit, okay, where Kasaba Bay was going to be the anchor project. Then would have had Shwangandu, would have had Dimfuwe, connecting with all the way up to Livingstone. In the area of tourism alone, the retention of tourists in the country would have increased to even over 10 days had we worked on all that. But the UPND came in and they've abandoned all that. If you look at the energy sector, we left a number of projects, including the Kalungwi Shilu Mangwe Falls generation the project. There were some Ku Lufuvu and many others. All those were abandoned because they were started by the PF. So in almost all these sectors, if the UPND had focused on completing some of these projects that were started, because the PF was very structured in their approach to development. If you looked at the National Development, 7th National Development Plan, that was our guiding document. We were very structured insofar as infrastructure development was concerned. So our UPND should have just capitalized on that and they were going to look very good.
We have a few messages here. A message from Jimmy who says, Mr. President, I love how you analyze things. I just want to let you know that you have my vote and keep on moving around. So that you can interact with more people. We also have another message from Justin. He says, I totally agree with you. Indeed, Zambians are going through hell. Poverty is and unemployment. My daughter is 5 years. It's been 5 years now and not employed as a nurse. A message from Roba Mwewa who says, we are solidly behind you. Don't let a few individuals with selfish interest deter you from pushing forward with your progressive programs. We know you have Zambia's best interests. Who's in Mufulira right now? Upper Belt and Southern provinces, they are becoming ghost provinces. What's your response to some of these messages?
Yeah, so the first thing when you look at, you have to look at the unique circumstances, Tembo. Copper Belt is among the easiest. Because of the mineral resource, the endowment. From there, we put citizens first. Nakulumutintana youth. They've got to benefit from the comparative advantages that exist on the Copper Belt. We already talked about, for instance, the local content. Imwe Tembo ku Copper Belt yuko. You are supposed to be millionaires on account of the mining activities going on. Not because you're stealing, not because you're doing something illegal. It doesn't matter what you do on the Copper Belt because there's so much wealth there. You are supposed to be millionaires by Tembo. Here is how. Let's say Tembo, you're a graduate. You graduated, you were in the School of Mining, you did your metallurgy, you got your degree and so on. There is no need to even start moving around with your certificates. Let's say you got your diploma, you were doing something. You form companies that support the mining sector. Government we've been pushing government to look at, to enact, to include in the law, Minerals Commission Act. They should include local content. We made an assessment. There are billions of dollars every year in the business to the mines. All we are asking for people like Tembo and other people on the copper belt, government should guarantee a certain percentage goes to the Zambian. There's a statutory instrument, I'm told, of up to 25% local content going to a lot of concessions that were given to this 25% of business for them to do it within themselves. We are saying 40% of that business must go to the Zambians. So, Tembo, what we are saying, let's say for argument's sake, contracts in mining and other supplying business and so on is maybe up to $5 billion across all the mines there. 40% of that is $2 billion. Tembo, do you realize that with that $2 billion worth of business, it will be very difficult to find somebody who has no contract on the copper belt? It will be very difficult to find youths who are not employed by these contractors. That single decision, Tembo, can change things for the copper belt alone before we even go to look at the small-scale miners and how best we can help them. Ilitulelanda, balaba small-scale miners, after our government wasukunsha, but no, tualambo kubashita train. Tualawa wika ma incubators, will train them on safe mining and so on and so forth. These are ideas that we gave to government. But today, tatula umfuapo kwa tukuli konge kulia, imisepe na chibuela pama mine. Tatula umfuapo ukukonsevale ya nimfutie na imisepe na chibuela pama mine. So, the copper belt is a low-hanging fruit, Tembo. The copper belt for Tonse is a low-hanging fruit. We are coming there with clear policies to make sure that the local businesses make their money. We are coming there. To make sure that the miners, the people working in the mines, okay, have got their sectoral minimum wages. We are going to introduce sectoral minimum wages so that whoever is working for these contractors, remember, Tembo would have secured $2 billion worth of business for these companies. But to also make sure that the people these companies employ are also protected by introducing sectoral minimum wages. As long as you're a contractor, mumine, nanguniwe miner, this is how much you should pay your driver. This is how much you should pay your... So that way we've protected the worker and we've protected the employer. So when it comes to the other small-scale mines, I think we've talked about it before. We make sure that through the interventions of government, we create employers. Instead of creating employees, we're actually creating employers, helping these small-scale miners, helping these suppliers, we're actually creating employers. When you look at Southern Province has got comparative advantages also. If you look at the tourism sector, that's our tourism capital. It's actually, in Livingstone. We've got to ensure that we work on the service industry around that and be able to connect Southern Province to the nearby provinces in a circuit in terms of tourism. Then we look at the area of livestock, like Western Province. There's a lot of livestock in Southern Province, and we can actually create a lot of wealth out of livestock. How do we do it? Government needs to intervene. Government needs to invest in veterinary services to ensure that that animal population is very, very healthy. But at the same time, there must be an aggregator facilitated by government that provides a ready market for livestock from Southern Province. There's been cases where animals are going for prices so low because the people wanting to offload have nowhere to take these animals. So to protect the value, government needs to go in and introduce aggregators to a point where, because the animals are well kept, the veterinary services are so advanced, and the health of every animal can be tracked by the certificates that are given. They get cash almost instantly when they deliver this animal to an aggregator. That becomes the motivation. An animal, Chisha, is like money in your wallet, as it were. That is how other countries have developed. So there are comparative advantages with each province, Tembo. So we don't come up with sweeping policies. We look at the unique circumstances or the unique nature of every province and be able to craft policies that will benefit the people there. But remember, central to every policy, regardless of which province, nina kulumutinta pamakasa no msepela.
A message from Aiden. In fact, Aiden has sent numerous messages talking about the same thing. He's talking about the cyber laws and how Zambians are afraid to speak, say what's on their minds, because if they say what they're thinking, they may get arrested. What are you going to do about these cyber laws?
We're going to review them. Zambians should enjoy their freedoms. Part 3 of the Constitution provides for fundamental rights of every Zambian. So the other laws that are coming up, whether it's cyber laws or any other law that seems to be inconsistent, we restore sanity. Yes, there has to be some control on the use of social media. But at the same time, in resolving that particular challenge, we should not step on people's rights.
Is that a promise?
It is a promise.
You will allow Zambians to speak.
Zambians speak freely. We will allow Zambians to communicate freely, Zambians to assemble, because they are right. Zambians must voice out. Abena Zambia, some of them actually are not even, they are not suffering because they can't afford to eat. Others can actually afford to eat, but the fact that they can't speak freely, they can't express themselves, they can't move freely. So we can't have a country like that.
We have a message. We didn't get he didn't provide a name, but he says he's a student. And one thing that's very important to him are the meal allowances, and the conversations that he has with his fellow students is they look at you as someone they like, but are afraid. And so if they vote for you, rescind those. Important to them.
Your meal allowances are safe as a student. We actually will soon be unveiling our manifesto. We have a lot more than meal allowances for you, the students. So we have a lot more. At some point, you're going to graduate. So we are looking beyond meal allowances. Your meal allowances are safe, but we want to do more for you as a student and the time after you graduate. So the package is bigger. The package is bigger. I thank you. I thank you for supporting us, but I want to assure you that your meal allowances are safe, and the package is actually much bigger. It will be unveiled as we unveil our manifesto. Yeah.
Mr. Mukango says late payment of farmers has left them like sheep lost in the wilderness without direction. What hope and direction are you giving to the farmers who are now fearful of being paid their next maize payment in March of next year?
What's the name of the gentleman?
Mr. Mukango.
Mukango. Ifwe nina kulumutinta pamakasa no misepela. So, number one, ayoma late payment chali chabula ndasana na alishile kukasama na sanga wanamai walala ma corridor for over 2 weeks. Nobody even knows okoba samba nganikui ekoba mkuyafilisha nganikuisa. That is inhuman. Edo nangu wakatekelo baishile ku parliament to come and give progress made in the implementation of national values and principles. I wonder what he had to say about the dignity of Zambians that spent months sleeping along the corridors. Balala panse mumfula to go and chase up for their money. I don't know what dignity the president would actually talk about with all that. So the Ngefu Twachilanda agriculture sector is very, very important. Agriculture sector is very, very important. Ama policies ya lengelo kuti tulelanda pama farming blocks. Tulelanda pama farming block lelo pamulandu wakutila. There should be options. Tule shila wa farmer ama options. noti twaisa mishinkira takuli kushya mataba na kumbiyo kuma boda twakoma eryo twasenda yonse amataba eryo twafila okumilipira. That is inhuman. Under Tonse, we will focus on the plight of farmers. Ama farmers, quantum of support to the farmers, they should be able to quickly graduate from small scale farmers into medium scale and commercial. That program will be made very, very clear. The quantum of support, your support mukwetelero, is not enough to take you into the next level. So besides looking at the marketing side, okumishta mataba no kumilipila, no kumisu we as Tonse, we will go further and increase the quantum of support. You see, you limit the time you're going to them 8 bars, you increase their yield and wait into the next. Supposed to work.
We have another message. Court matters as it's been suggested by the police.
The Court Alliance has no court matters that I know of. They have been brought to my attention by the chairperson for legal. I don't know of any.
No. Legal issues?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, we're almost coming to a close. Millions of Zambians are listening to you now. What's your message to that Zambian who may be still undecided about who they should cast their vote for on the 13th of August, 2026? You can speak to them, Derek.
Mwema Zambians, you have to trust us. Tule lombo kuti mutuchite trust. Natuishiva ukutufumine. Ukutufumine kwali ama promises ya lekana. Kwali ama promises ya kutila ubunga ukapali 50 kwacha. Kwali ama promise ya kutila fertilizer ikapali 250 kwacha. Kwali ama promise ya kutila tukalapela fertilizer 88. Kwali ama promise ya kutila mukwa ifyo ikapali 12 kwacha. Kwali ama promise ya kutila nga wapunda fati bali chijob muliwe. We know the pain. We know the disappointments. We are here as Tonse to give you hope. We are here as Tonse to inform you that unlike our friends in government today, President Hakainde Hichilema with his team, that would prioritize the plight of foreigners. Amachushi abakankala eyo babutukira. Nga bamfu okuti issues concerning over 7 months. Is simply unaffordable. If we focus yesu Mazambians, focus yesu nina kulumutinta, focus yesu musepela, ama policies yesu yonse nangwama funde twasendo musepela. For instance, pachiwa question pama cyber laws umusepela lelo ulefilo kulanda umusepela nga watu mafoni uleti ni komi AI. That cannot work. As Tonse, we are saying we will review all those laws and policies that affect the Zambians negatively, especially nakulumutinta no musepela. Twalalolesha pama fundeyo nsiayo mushomu Zambian muri macro ocean iyi company ba mumungafye pakutile sendendama for 25 years, yet NAPSA is the one that sponsored the construction of the road. Which, how is this working for the Zambian? So Kanshi, we are asking and 11 civil society are receiving some more organizations. Hopefully over the weekend, the numbers will even grow bigger. We promise you, the Zambian people, we promise you unity of purpose. We want to unite Zambia. A Zambia where an average citizen should not be overly conscious about their ethnicity. A Zambian where you meet somebody on the bus or on a plane, you simply ask for their name and not ask them where they come from. We want to bring about a Zambia where a local businessman can apply for a tender with government without anyone requiring a list from PACRA to see where they come from before they awarded the contract. As long as where people will live not with anxiety. A Zambia where laws will be applied equitably and not selectively. A Zambia where umulandu muntu ngapanga uyo mulandu nangwa uyo wapanga mulandu whether wa Tonse, wa UPND, wa PF, wa Shani, mulandu. Not a Zambia where abapanga femilandu wa opposition. Umulandu mo winenga wapangwa as long as in the ruling party kuli mulandu bani wa opposition. We look for a Zambia where the fight against corruption will be genuine, where you don't leave corruption involving $2.5 billion taken away by some mining house and the minister forgiving that particular company. A situation where a tax due to ZRA of $1 billion is reduced to $23 million and nobody sees corruption in that. A Zambia where, not a Zambia where mines, 51% shares of a mine worth 4.5 billion are transferred to their friends and nobody sees any corruption in that. We don't want a Zambia where your targets are given away to foreigners who haven't even built a single kilometer on that road and nobody sees any corruption in that. We do not want a Zambia where the FIC report $3.5 billion suspicious transactions, $2 billion suspicious transactions, 60 billion kwacha suspicious transactions, 5.8 billion kwacha suspicious transactions, 13.5 billion kwacha suspicious transactions. And nobody is arrested, nobody is questioned. But they rush to go and confiscate vehicles from Dar es Salaam. We don't support corruption, however small. But we want a Zambia that fights corruption equitably. Not on one hand, $10 billion in suspicious transactions is forgotten about. And then you rush to go and make headlines on 24 million kwacha. We don't like corruption. We hate corruption. We condemn corruption. But whatever the case, the $10 billion worth of suspicious transactions should be investigated. The $2.5 billion which was stolen by some mining house should actually be investigated. The issue of toll gates should be investigated. Not just rushing to go and confiscate flats from Boma Nusambo, vehicles from Dar es Salaam, and so on. So that is a Zambia that you should look forward to. A Zambia that will be fair. That justice, Zambia where law leave total this opportunity to come kwai kanshi mkwa esa mipale bonsena total.
I've been your host. My guest has been Tonse Alliance presidential candidate, Mr. Brian Mundubile. We've been live on different platforms. We've been live on Facebook, the Hot FM Zambia Facebook page. Thank you very much for watching and also leaving your comments. We've been live on Kwitu FM, Oblet Radio Liseri, and Mwandi Community Radio in the Western Province. KNC Radio out there in the Central Province, Radio Echengelo on the Copper Belt Province. Luapula Province, you are listening live on Radio Yangeni and KFM. Northern Province, you've been listening to us live on Radio Mano. Muchinga Province, you are listening to us live on Chete FM. Wherever you've been listening to us from all around Zambia, I'd like to say thank you for the next episode of The Hot Seat.
Thank you very much.
That was wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you.
You did well.
Thank you very
well.
much. Thank you.
Cheers.
I told you, I said, I'll get energy.